Welcome to the Therapist Book Club, where two therapists dive into their favorite books and the powerful mental health themes they uncover.
Whether you're here for literary inspiration, therapeutic tools, or just some lighthearted conversation, you've found the right place.
So get cozy and let's dive into the pages together. Hey, welcome back. Today we're talking about The Reading List by Sara Nisha Adams. And Tiana and I both read this book. Actually, it was, I don't know how you found it, but my sister-in-law is the one that suggested it to me.
Yeah,
Um,
I might have, maybe you told me about it and that's when I
it's
read.
a Facebook post where like, people tell us which like books you've read recently. I think that's what it was. Um, and so the reading list has some themes, lots of themes of grief, of longing and loss,
Mhm.
trauma, working through emotional needs, things like that. Do you want to give us a rundown or do you want me to do it?
Yeah, so there's kind of two main characters, I would say. So the first is Mukesh. He's an older gentleman. His wife has just passed away. And then a younger girl, I think a teenager,
Yeah.
Aleisha. And she's working in a library and they connect there because Mukesh has found a list of books that he believes um, his wife has left him, and they start reading these books together and developing this friendship. Yeah, and their relationship, their friendship helps them both in different kind of unique ways throughout the as the story kind of unfolds.
Well, and I think he finds the reading list in one of his wife's books, and he went on this quest to read the books that she wanted to read.
Try to find her in some way
Yeah.
to connect with her.
And throughout the story, other people start to find this reading list.
Yeah.
And so um,
They create like a little book club at the library, don't they?
yeah, well, on accident, right?
Yeah.
So Alicia's the librarian, or she's working at the library. It's the summer before her senior year. And so she's doing this job. On the book, on the list, it is To Kill a Mockingbird. Um, let's see, I can't remember all of them. To Kill a Mockingbird, Pride and Prejudice, The Kite Runner,
Like,
uh,
hi.
The Time Traveler's Wife, wasn't that on there?
No. Rebecca, Pride and Little Women, Beloved, A Suitable Boy.
I wonder if some of these are made up and some are like literary fiction. I
Maybe.
never looked that up, but
Okay.
it so the main characters are Alicia and Mukesh, right? And then they bring in other characters who find this reading list, and I think they start to realize, and actually Alicia and Mukesh meet. Remember, she was like super rude to him.
So rude.
He was uh this was, I thought, so interesting. He's of like the boomer generation, if I might say that. Which, side story, I actually just had that talk with my dad, who is a boomer. I said, Dad, have you ever heard the kids say that?
What did he say?
He had no, I mean, he was like, well, yeah, I'm a baby boomer, but I was like, nah, that's not what they mean. My dad is 79, almost 8, or just something like he'll be 80 next year. So anyway, I was imagining Mukesh a little bit like that, like a little bit not up on the times. Seemed like his wife took care of a lot of stuff. Maybe that's cultural, and I don't know that culture. His
In
family's from India. Yeah, maybe that's cultural. It does seem like the women in the family like he has three girls who come in and tell him what to do and change things, and like, yeah, just you should be doing this and this and this and this. And the the evolution with the reading list is kind of cool, right? Because then we see Mukesh grow as a person. He didn't know how to remember when his wife died, and she had a book from the library, and he went to bring it back to the library but didn't know how. He didn't know how the library worked, and Alicia was a jerk to him during that time, because of the stuff that she had going on at home with her mom, who was mentally ill. Um, and she had a brother who was taking care of them, essentially trying to fill the parent role. And dad was married with another family and absent.
Yeah.
Um, but we see Mukesh grow through the relationship with his granddaughter, who thinks he is the most uncool, boring person in the whole world, but then they start to grow together through the reading list.
Yeah.
And that is the part that the granddaughter was really, really close with his wife, with grandma, and they were able to, you know, connect with their love for grandma. It all kind of blossomed through the stories here. And Alicia becomes close with him and his family, and they kind of know her throughout the story. And I thought that was done so lovely, where sometimes you might see those and you're like questioning, you're like, oh, that's weird. Like, why is
So
it an old
creepy.
man? Yeah. It was not, I was like, I
Yeah.
read through that and I was listening for that because
I
anyway,
didn't get that vibe 1 minute in this
no,
story.
never.
It was it was always very appropriate and kind and warm. It very much felt like a grandfather to her. Like
Yeah.
he seemed like a grandfather role to Alicia even as well.
Yes. Yes, I thought that too. I thought it was always very I never got any weird vibes, and I never walked away like, "Okay, that's cute," but like, "Oh, that couldn't happen." I thought that was lovely. I really loved some of the side characters. The one that stood out to me was, um, the kid, he was like a young adult, and his girlfriend had just dumped him.
Remember?
Remember him? And you only hear about him for a second.
Yeah, maybe that's why. Yeah, so this story like random characters kind of come in and go, and like sometimes it can feel like a little bit like you're going off onto this other story, or they're going to connect into this bigger story somehow,
Yeah.
but they don't really. And
Yeah, that was my that did lose me a little bit because 'cause I'm like, "Actually, I just want to hear about Mukesh." I loved him so much. We lost my mom in September, and I read this after that, and I was like, "This sounds just like my dad."
Mm.
My mom and dad were married for 54 years, and this experience of grief was so authentic that I was like, "Wow, this sounds just like this is a story about my dad."
Yeah.
You know, and so to me, I thought that was kind of beautiful. It was believable. Mukesh loved his wife so much, and I
Yeah,
thought
he was
about
lost without her. He was just so lost without her.
that's what I was just gonna say, like, the parts that, like it's so interesting how little he could do for himself,
I know.
because I think they have a generation of, like, the women's role was to take care of the husband and to take care of the house, and the husband's role was to work, right? And so now in these later stages, Mukesh is not working, he's retired, but his wife's job didn't end until she passed away, right? And so in kind of a cute way, he was very lovable in this, but he was so lost. Like he could not
Even just
do anything.
the scenes where he didn't like his daughters were so worried about what he was going to be eating, and they kept encouraging him to go to the temple or something to like
Yeah,
make sure to get the community meals where somebody else would prepare them for him. And I think sometime in the end, near the end, he's like, I can cook for myself, or he starts like preparing some of the food that he used to love,
yeah,
started branching out and becoming more independent, which I thought was cute.
that is growth throughout that book for him. It's like then he just starts to do it his way. And the daughters would come in and try to organize things in the way that their mom did it. And I remember there was a discussion about the chai.
Mhm.
And he wanted to just get quick, easy chai, and they were like, "No, you have to prepare it this way." And in the end, he stocked up, like, his chai the way that, like, it just made sense for him, and we just kind of see him grow through that grief, but, like, into the person that he is. Um, I love that story though because he did find a way to live on after the passing of his spouse, which I've worked with a lot of our elder population when they lose one of their spouses. That's hard sometimes. And I'm gonna say it, I know this is generalizing, but in my experience, even more so for men, when their spouse passes away, it's harder for them to develop a life after.
Yeah. And I think that speaks to a larger like societal expectation of men to go out and be like the breadwinners, for example, and they are not really encouraged to have these friendships or these meaningful activities that they love and that they love to do. They're like, I don't know, I saw something recently that was like, women do not have there's no loneliness epidemic for women. We're always out there trying to join another group text. We're doing community event, like we're always out there. And men are lonely. And so when their spouse dies, that loneliness is compounded. And like, if I don't have my wife, then who do I have?
Yeah. Yeah. I thought, should we talk about Alicia's family?
Yeah. So Aleisha, I didn't fall in love with Aleisha like I did with Mukesh.
I didn't fall in love with any character in the book the way I did Mukesh.
Yeah. But she, to me, she was an equally, like the way she was portrayed was they were co main characters.
Yeah.
But I felt like I got more invested in Mukesh than with Aleisha.
Yeah. So this book is dual point of views. I shouldn't say dual, multi point of views, right? And each chapter is like maybe a different character. And when the chapters were too many of the other like side quests, I'm like, okay, where's Mukesh? Give me some more of him because him and his daughters, like they were great, right? But I do think I really like I thought Alicia's story was really interesting. I thought she was written in an interesting way and not as fun and lovable way, right?
Mhm.
And maybe on purpose because I think she was struggling to be fun and lovable
Yeah.
as a person or feel that, right? As a child who has like lost or been abandoned by a caregiver and growing up with a mom who never recovered from that, right? Like the depression got so bad from that part, and then having an older brother who is like I don't know, he's as much of a like the glue of the family as he is the jerk of the family in some ways.
Yeah, the brother, it seemed like the brother was very much burdened by duty and responsibility, but he didn't want to have that responsibility.
Yeah, he was angry with mom. He would often like be upset with mom. He would take on parenting roles with Alicia, but he wasn't the parent. So it came out upset with Alicia. Eh, There, we're gonna share a really huge spoiler of the book.
Yeah,
If you
we
haven't read
can't leave
it,
it out.
look away, turn this off. Um, and we see that culminate into him taking his life.
Yeah.
I read that and I was like, "You're joking."
I,
Because
in fact, I was like, no, they're hinting at him doing that, but that's not really what happened. And then it was.
I'm like, it was too kind of like overt to me. You
Yeah.
know, like, oh, he's so burdened, he's so upset, so he's gonna kill himself, and we're gonna have this cool plot twist.
Yeah.
And to me, I was like, oh, I just so desperately wanted mom to find healing
Yeah.
through like I wanted mom to find the reading list and that they all healed through this, you know? I to me, I'm like, I don't know. A lot of times when suicide's in books, I feel empathy or compassion, or I feel like, oh, that must have been so hard for that character to be going through. For the brother, I was like, all right, this author kind of overtly with broad brushstrokes was like, I'm gonna write this character that's very stereotypical what I think suicide looks like. And I don't know, to me, I'm like, I didn't see those as the accurate signs or predictors.
Yeah, I agree. It felt that's why my brain was like, I know they're hinting at this, but that's not really what happened, right?
Yeah. I was like, wouldn't that have been more satisfying if mom somehow like found the reading list that Alicia had and started reading the books?
I mean, it would have made more sense for mom to take her own life
It
based
would
on what we
make more
thought.
sense for that, but I don't know, sometimes my deeply depressed clients, it's like
Um, they're too apathetic to take their own life.
Yes. Yeah, they don't have, like, the energy level versus, like, maybe manic or something, but I was like, "That would have been a more satisfying payoff because this book was about healing."
Okay, but okay. Here's a little like devil's advocate. There had to be another crisis
Mhm.
for her to work through in a healing relationship like she had with Mukesh. So I could see where the author was like, okay, let's insert a crisis like this here and see what happens. See if she calls upon those that she is close to help heal her and help support her through this next loss.
I'm gonna say, I think, yes, that is cliché writing, that we needed another event, activating event to get us over, like, the last bump of the roller coaster, right? To, like, slide us into the end. I To me, it felt a little cliché that,
Yeah.
"Alright, so let's just do this," like,
Kill the brother off.
yeah, and to me, I'm like, "I don't know," or what if mom attempted and she went to the hospital and Alicia brought her the reading list
While she was
because
inpatient.
she didn't know what else to she didn't know how else to handle it, right? And she just was like, "I don't know, mom, here's little,"
And
I,
held the baby. Yeah.
and I'm like, "Okay, that could have been an activating event that would have tied the end in better to me." Because then I was like, "Okay, then we had a parade."
Yeah.
So that was my I almost stopped reading after that part. I was so upset by, like, how cliché that felt, and then I was like, "And now we're gonna just," I saw how little of the book we had left, and I was like, "Great, now we're just gonna, like, wrap that up," and yes, they did it, and it did an injustice to the growth that Mukesh made and that Alicia made, right? Like, I think there could have been a different activating event,
Mhm.
not that they had to now be perfect, because like we've talked about in other books, sometimes it's just neutral. Like, hey, mom might always deal with mental health concerns, but now they've kind of grown together.
Well, and part of Alicia's story was like this loneliness. She didn't really fit in at school. She didn't really have anybody to connect with at home. And this reading list brought her this connection. So her life, her home life could still be terrible. Like her mom could still be really struggling and going home might be really hard, but having an outlet, having an outside, I like this concept that's been floating around with like this third place, having another place to go to feel belonging and connectedness is going to continue to heal Aleisha. So we could have left everything at home the same
Mhm.
potentially and not disrupted anything there and still shown her growth arc, I think.
Yeah, I still think mom could have had a suicide attempt, and then all like then the aunt showed up and like family showed up, and it could have been an awakening moment for the family. Then she kind of talked with her dad. I don't I To me, I'm like, that felt like a cliche, a literary cliche, you know?
Yeah, I didn't love that part of the book.
And actually, if I had been more surprised about it and had more, like, subtleties of hints, I think I would have liked it better too.
Yep, I agree. Yeah. Okay, but I wonder too, like, we know the signs of suicide or suicidal ideation, but is it well known in the public? Like maybe there were signs and nobody saw it. Nobody knew what to look for.
See, I think that's so tricky. I think we do have statistical signs.
Right.
Like, statistically, these things happen more often, but I don't know, most people, if you worked with families that have lost somebody to suicide, they didn't see the signs.
Right.
Because actually, I believe that if they did see the signs, they would have intervened. The problem is we didn't see it, and it was so shocking and surprising. And this, I think one of the things is this person was desperately trying to hold it together, you know?
Way too much.
And so I don't know. I guess that's where I always go back to, like, um, and their loved ones around them are not therapists, and with what she was sharing about the brother, why would the family have been led to believe that? Like, to me, that's what I always go back to is like, I get that statistically we can, we can boil down the numbers of, things that happen in a suicide, but yeah, does that make us better at noticing or being like, "Hey, you're statistically about to kill yourself," you know?
You're showing this sign.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so hard. I think that's what's hard about it. I think that's why it's not so easy to just have a suicide prevention program that fix all better.
Yeah, like you were saying in another episode about our governor's every suicide is preventable, is saying that we can see every single time someone is suicidal
Mhm. Mhm.
is a fallacy. We can, like you said, look at some statistically significant signs,
Mhm.
but we won't always know every time.
And it's I mean, it can be really tricky. I've worked with a lot of families that have experienced this in their family system, and they tell me the story, and I'm like, "How could you have known?
Yeah.
How could you have known?" Like, typically, the person is no longer telling them the bad stuff. They're just so depleted and so hopeless. They're no longer reaching out for help or telling you stuff. I do believe that typically you're not like it would have made more sense for mom, to have ended her life.
Would have been more,
I think
it would
authentic.
have made more sense, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe it's more how I see it in
Cool.
our practice. Yeah. Because I would say what families will typically say is, I mean, I'm not surprised because they were struggling, but I didn't know that it was going to happen then, or that was and like, how could you? And that individual probably is not telling you on purpose. Like they yeah. Anyway, I won't go into but they're probably just not telling you on purpose.
So in some ways, her brother's death by suicide, like, is sometimes how death by suicide happens. Like don't even see it coming. And it's so,
Yeah, I guess, but you would also just really see signs and indicators like
would you? Would you though?
well, yeah, because I mean, I haven't had where I'm like, people were aware of mental health concerns prior,
Yeah.
and
But
they
who was
were
watching out for this boy?
I mean, then the author could have done a better job to let us into. He could have had a POV or something. Because 'cause I'm like, just the way it
Yeah,
was
I
written.
wished he had a POV. That was something that was missing from it. Like, I don't want you to throw in this whole wrench about his life and then like, or I don't want you to not tell me anything about him and then all of a sudden he's gone.
In, like, such a tragic,
Yeah.
shocking kinda way, like this big and like, event way. So, but I think the so, okay, so being in the literature world and in the publishing world myself, I know that this person read it, their beta readers read it, they sent it to an agent, the agent signed them, the agent read it and went through it, maybe the agent's intern read it, and the publisher's editor, the acquiring editor read it. And like, where did we go wrong here, people? Like, and to me, I'm like, because here's the thing, sometimes cliches sell.
Mhm.
And so that is why I would say the reading list doesn't go on my like required reading
Yeah.
for therapists.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's a heart. I view this book as like a heartwarming feel. Like it's a heartwarming book.
But as like
Not
just a
really.
regular person, like a book club, I think it rates higher that way. And if I could read things without being a therapist, I would rate things different.
Well, I like you've done before, you can rate it as like a regular reader and as a like in a therapy perspective.
Yeah.
This isn't one that I think is going to really teach you anything about mental illness or
Well, I do think it is a good vision of older men experiencing grief.
Yes. And the power and importance of community.
There you go. Yeah.
Your mental health.
Those are the takeaways.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not going to help you understand suicide or depression.
Hmm.
Well, maybe some depression
No, that's
comes
pretty
from,
glossed over.
yeah. I would argue that Mukesh probably had like some depression though, along with his grief
Hmm.
in the beginning.
I suppose you could get insight of being a child of
Mhm.
a parent with mental illness. You could get that from Aleisha because I think she has a pretty standard presentation in that way, right? Like she talks about it, her life is so different than everybody, her other friends. Her friends don't have to work because they have two parents, and she does have to work. And I think maybe her brother even kind of alludes to that, that he probably wanted to do other things with his life, but had to provide for the family. And
Yeah, I would say very surface level mental health.
yeah, yeah. So I think as a book club, could it do some good? Yeah. I
Yeah.
think a book club read for people who um maybe haven't had deep experiences with mental health,
Mhm.
which I don't
Or
know.
loss.
I
Mhm.
feel like that's like finding a unicorn in this world these days. I feel like I don't know. But if you are one of those people, you should write a book and tell us what that's like.
Well, we are immersed in a certain type of work. So we
Yeah.
maybe see the world in a unique way.
But I do think for a book club, it could make for some good, interesting experiences of discussing some of this. It could make somebody stop and think a little bit. It could make somebody stop and think about suicide in a different way, that it's like, I don't think suicide comes from selfishness, which I think in my career, I have heard therapists or communities discuss suicide in that way. Like,
Still?
do that. No, no, no. I mean, that was like when I entered the field 20 years ago. I think we discussed it in that way, that it was selfish. And I think we've come a long ways. Like, we definitely don't see it as selfish in this book, right? Um, so I think for book club, it can have some good experience, some good value in those discussions, and like in that broader changing how we view people who might experience depression, grief,
Mhm.
suicidality. I think for therapists, it could go deeper for us because like we do go deeper in those fields.
I would agree.
So I think if I put it all together, like, I mean, as a therapist, it's maybe one of the 3.5 star books for me. And as a book club, it's a 4 star for me.
I think I'm right there with you. I loved the heartwarming connection community. Like I loved all that part of it.
Yeah,
It didn't quite get into the realm of like this is a must read for men to understand mental health.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Mukesh is a must read. Like, if just maybe skip through.
Let's read it to love Mukesh because he's
Yes,
wonderful.
he is lovable. I really thought that was the most authentic part of the book, is like our older men experiencing grief and loss of this partner, like
Yes,
lifelong
fun
partner.
fact. Also, if you listen to the book, I believe I from what I remember, Mukesh's voice is spoken by an Indian man.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, so it feels very authentic.
Yes. Yeah, agreed.
Right.
Awesome. Well, we'll be back for another.
I see ya. Thanks for joining us on the Therapist Book Club. We hope today's conversation inspired you to explore new stories and perspectives.
Don't forget to follow us for more episodes, share your favorite books with us, and join the conversation on how books and mental health connect on our social media channels.
Until next time, keep reading, keep growing, and remember, your story matters.